Ambassador Kyungmin stood at the big window of the spaceship, looking down at the small blue planet below him. The planet was called Earth, and it was spinning slowly in the darkness of space like a beautiful marble. The ship belonged to the Galactic Council, and they had found this new world just a few weeks ago. The first reports about Earth were very simple. The humans who lived there seemed normal enough. They had 2 arms and 2 legs. Just like most other species in the galaxy, their cities were small and their technology was not very advanced. They had only just started to send small rockets into space. Hana was the chief scientist on the ship. She was looking at her computer screen and reading all the information they had collected. About the humans, so far everything looked ordinary. The humans built houses and grew food and made simple machines. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. The Galactic Council had been watching new species for thousands of years. They had a simple job. Watch from far away, write down what they see, wait until the new species learns to travel between stars. Then make contact. It was a system that worked well. Most species followed the same pattern. First they learned to farm, then they built cities. Then they invented machines. Then they reached for the stars. Commander Taewook was not impressed with the humans. He was a soldier from the Altarian Defense Force, and he had seen many species before. These humans looked weak. Their weapons were primitive. They used chemical explosives and metal bullets. Nothing that could hurt a real spaceship. The observation mission was supposed to be boring. The Council had rules. Monitor from a safe distance. Document everything. Make contact only when they achieve faster than light travel. It was a job that usually took hundreds of years. Dr. Hana turned on the holographic display showing human cities from space. Look at this, she said, pointing at the images. They are so scattered. No unified government. No single leader. They speak hundreds of different languages. Most species unite under one banner before reaching space, but these humans are divided. The crew settled in for what they thought would be a long and boring assignment. The humans were split into almost 200 different nations. Each nation had its own customs, beliefs, and borders. Some were democratic, others were ruled by kings or dictators. Some were rich, others were poor. It was chaos. By galactic standards, Lieutenant Sung-ho was the communications officer. He spent his days listening to human radio signals and computer messages. They spend more time fighting each other than developing technology. He said, we have recorded thousands of diplomatic messages. They are always arguing, making deals, breaking promises, forming alliances, then breaking them again. It is exhausting to watch. The ship computer was very smart. It had information about thousands of species from across the galaxy. After analyzing all the data about humans, it made a prediction. Humans would need at least 500 years to become a galactic civilization. Maybe longer because they fought so much among themselves. As the days passed, the crew set up monitoring stations to watch human communications. They studied human movies and television shows. They listened to human music and read human books. The humans seemed creative but completely disorganized. They had no unified military, no single leader, no clear plan for advancement. Captain Jiwoo was the ship commander. She read the daily reports and shook her head. They are like children playing with toys, she said. Their biggest military forces could not challenge a single council patrol ship. Their most advanced aircraft can barely break the sound barrier. The crew began to relax. This would be an easy assignment. Document the slow human development. File regular reports. Wait for something interesting to happen. Many species took centuries to develop anything worth noting. Kyung-min spent hours watching the blue planet rotate below them. He observed human cities at night glowing with electric lights. He watched their primitive spacecraft launch from the surface. Carrying small satellites, he saw their weather systems swirl across the continents. It was peaceful, almost boring. The humans seemed to spend most of their time on simple activities. They grew food in fields. They built roads and bridges. They made cars and computers. They sent messages around their world through cables and radio waves. Their technology was thousands of years behind what the council species used. Dr. Hana discovered that humans had something they called the Internet. It was a global communication network that connected most of their computers. This was actually quite impressive for such a primitive species. Most species did not develop global communication until much later in their development. But even with this internet, the humans remained divided. They used it to argue with each other, share pictures of their food, and watch videos of small animals doing amusing things. They did not use it to unite their species or coordinate their advancement. Commander Taewook studied human military forces through satellite images. Their weapons were basic metal projectiles fired by chemical explosions. Their aircraft were slow and clumsy. Their ships floated on water instead of flying through space. They had something called nuclear weapons, but these were primitive compared to galactic technology. The humans had one thing that puzzled the observers. They seemed to enjoy conflict. They made movies about wars. They played games where they fought each other. They told stories about heroes and battles. Most galactic species had evolved beyond the need for conflict. These humans seemed to celebrate it. Lieutenant Seung-ho noticed something else about human communications. They had thousands of languages and dialects, but they also had common languages that many humans could speak. This suggested they were capable of cooperation when they chose to be. They just rarely chose to babyship. AI continued to analyze human behavior patterns. It noted that humans were adaptable. They lived in every climate on their planet, from frozen ice caps to hot deserts. They ate many different types of food. They had developed different solutions to the same problems in different parts of their world. Captain Ji-woo was not worried about the humans. They were clearly not a threat to galactic civilization. Their technology was primitive. Their species was divided. Their military forces were weak. Even if they developed faster than light travel, it would take them generations to become a significant power. The crew had seen this pattern many times before. A primitive species struggles with internal conflicts for centuries, then they slowly unite under a single government. Then they develop advanced technology, then they join the galactic community as peaceful members. It was predictable. As the first month of observation ended, the crew felt confident in their assessment. The humans were ordinary, a typical pre-spaceflight civilization, nothing special, nothing dangerous. Just another species that would eventually join the galactic community after centuries of slow development. None of them realized they were about to witness something that would change the galactic community forever. The humans were about to show them that some species do not follow the expected patterns. Some species are different in ways that no one can predict. A peaceful observation mission was about to become something much more dramatic. 3 months had passed since the observation mission began. Dr. Hannah was working at her computer station when something strange caught her attention. The human communication networks were acting differently. The usual scattered chatter between nations had suddenly become focused, and urgent emergency meetings were being held in every major human capital around the world. Captain, she called out, her voice filled with worry. You need to see this right now. The main display screen lit up, showing a massive object approaching Earth's solar system. The object was clearly artificial and very large. It looked like a dark angular vessel the size of a small moon. The council crew recognized it immediately from their databases. It was a destroyer-class ship. From the Keth Empire, Commander Taewook felt his blood turn cold as he stared at the screen. They found Earth, he whispered. The Keth were known across the galaxy as ruthless conquerors. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations, turning entire planets into resource extraction sites. They enslaved survivors and strip-mined worlds until nothing remained. We have to warn the council, Captain Ji-woo said, but Lieutenant Seung-ho was already shaking his head as he checked his instruments. We cannot reach the nearest council base in time, he reported. The Keth ship will arrive at Earth in 72 hours. Even our fastest courier ship would take weeks to reach council headquarters. The crew watched in growing horror as the Keth vessel approached Earth. They had seen this pattern before many times. The Keth would arrive at a primitive world, demand complete surrender, then systematically harvest the planet resources and enslave any survivors. It was efficient, brutal, and had never failed in recorded galactic history. Down on Earth, the humans were in complete chaos. Their primitive tracking systems had detected the approaching alien ship, and panic was spreading across the entire planet. News broadcasts showed crowded streets, emergency government meetings, and desperate attempts by civilians to hide in underground shelters. They are trying to negotiate, Dr. Hannah reported as she monitored human communications. Multiple governments are attempting to establish communication with the Keth vessel. They are sending radio signals in every frequency they can think of. The Keth response was swift and predictable. A single message was broadcast to Earth in hundreds of human languages using their own communication systems: surrender. Immediately, resistance will result in total planetary destruction. You have 24 hours to complete. The council crew expected immediate capitulation. Every species faced with Keth ultimatums had surrendered within hours. It was the logical response. The Keth had overwhelming technological superiority and resistance was complete suicide. No primitive species had ever challenged them, but the humans were not behaving logically. Instead of surrendering, something unprecedented happened. The fractured human governments began communicating with each other at an incredible pace. Ancient enemies were sharing intelligence, rival nations were coordinating strategies and competing. Ideologies were suddenly unified by a single purpose. This is impossible. Commander Taewook muttered as he watched the displays. They are not surrendering, they are organizing within 18 hours, every human military force on the planet had been placed under unified command. Nuclear weapons were being prepared. Space agencies were coordinating launch schedules, and civilian populations were being evacuated to underground facilities. The transformation was remarkable. Dr. Hana was fascinated. In less than a day, they have created a global government structure that some species take centuries to develop. How are they doing this so quickly? The answer was becoming clear as they monitored human communications. The humans were not just organizing, they were angry, furiously, terrifyingly angry. The Keth had made a critical error. They had threatened human children, human families, human civilization itself. Lieutenant Sung-ho was monitoring military communications around the world. Listen to this, he said, playing back human radio transmissions. They are not discussing surrender terms, they are discussing battle plans. They are talking about how to fight back. The alien observers watched in amazement as human leaders, who had been enemies for decades, suddenly began working together. Presidents and prime ministers, who had never spoken before, were now coordinating military strategies. Nations that had been at war were sharing weapons and intelligence. Captain Ji-woo studied the tactical displays. The humans are mobilizing everything they have. Every military base is active, every nuclear weapon is being prepared, every space-capable rocket is being modified for combat. They are turning their entire civilization into a weapon. The Keth ship continued its approach, confident in the outcome. No primitive species had ever resisted them. The ship computer systems were already calculating resource extraction schedules and slave labor requirements. The Keth commander was probably preparing standard occupation protocols, but down on Earth something extraordinary was happening. The humans were not just preparing to fight, they were preparing to win. Their scientists were working around the clock to analyze the Keth ship design. Their military leaders were developing tactics specifically designed to exploit alien weaknesses. Dr. Hannah watched human news broadcasts with growing amazement. Look at their faces, she said. They are not afraid. They are determined. They actually believe they can win this fight. The humans had united in a way that defied everything the council knew about primitive species development. Ancient rivalries were forgotten in the face of external threat. Religious differences were set aside. Political enemies were working together. The entire human species had become focused on a single goal: survival, and the humans were not going to surrender. The Keth ship moved closer to Earth, unaware that they were about to encounter something completely unprecedented in galactic history. A primitive species that refused to follow the rules, a species that would rather die fighting than live in slavery. The peaceful observation mission was about to become a front-row seat to the most shocking battle in galactic history. The Keth ship moved into Earth orbit exactly on schedule. The Council observers expected to witness another routine conquest. A few token resistance attempts followed by swift defeat and planetary occupation. Instead, they watched in stunned amazement as the humans launched their response. Every human space agency fired simultaneously. Rockets carrying nuclear weapons streaked toward the Keth vessel from launch sites across the planet. The primitive missiles were slow by galactic standards, but there were hundreds of them. The humans had apparently converted their entire nuclear arsenal into space-based weapons in less than 24 hours. They are actually attacking, Lieutenant Sung-ho whispered. A primitive species is attacking a Keth. Destroy the Keth. Response was swift. Advanced energy weapons vaporized the incoming missiles effortlessly. The ship's shields did not even flicker. It was exactly what everyone expected. The humans had no chance against superior technology, but the Humans were not finished. As the nuclear missiles were destroyed, something else emerged from Earth's atmosphere, thousands of smaller objects moving in complex patterns. The Council crew sensors could not identify them initially. They were too small, too numerous, and moving too erratically. "What are those, Captain Jiwoo?" demanded DR. Hannah's fingers flew over her console. "They are human aircraft, but modified. They have attached some kind of explosive devices to civilian aircraft, passenger jets, cargo planes, even small personal aircraft. They are turning their entire civilian fleet into weapons." The Keth commander apparently reached the same conclusion. Energy weapons began picking off the approaching aircraft, but there were too many. The humans had launched everything that could fly from every airport on the planet. Commercial airliners flew alongside. Military jets, crop dusters next to luxury aircraft, all carrying improvised explosive devices. The first wave was destroyed completely. So was the second and the third, but the humans kept coming. "They are not stopping," Commander Taewook said, his voice filled with disbelief. "They are sending their people to die for no tactical advantage." But Dr. Hana was beginning to understand. "It is not about tactical advantage," she said quietly. "They are showing the Keth that they will not surrender ever. They are willing to die rather than submit." The Keth ship began orbital bombardment. Energy beams lanced down from space, vaporizing human cities. The Council crew watched in horror as millions of humans died in seconds. Surely this would break their resistance. Instead, the attacks intensified. The humans launched more aircraft, more missiles, more improvised weapons. They were fighting with everything. They had chemical weapons, biological agents, even ramming attacks where human pilots deliberately crashed their aircraft into the Keth ship hull. "This is madness," Captain Jiwoo breathed. "They are committing suicide." But the humans were not just dying. They were learning. Each wave of attacks was more sophisticated than the last. They were analyzing the Keth weapons, adapting their tactics, finding weaknesses. Their primitive computers were processing battle data in real time, and human engineers were modifying weapons and tactics faster than anyone thought possible. The Keth ship, designed to overwhelm civilized species with superior technology, was struggling against an opponent that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. The humans were fighting like cornered animals, using every dirty trick, every desperate gambit, every suicidal strategy they could imagine. Dr. Hannah monitored human communications during the battle. "Listen to this," she said, broadcasting human radio transmissions. "They are not just fighting, they are enjoying it. Their pilots are laughing as they attack. Their commanders are excited by the challenge." The alien observers realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humans were not just defending themselves, they were having fun. They had discovered they were good at war, and they liked it. Lieutenant Suho was tracking the battle statistics. "The humans have lost over 60% of their attacking forces, but they are still coming. Their production facilities are working at maximum capacity, building new weapons even as their cities burn." The Keth shields were beginning to fluctuate under the constant barrage. Minor damage was accumulating on the ship hull. The orbital bombardment was slowing as the Keth were forced to focus on defending their own. Vessel Commander Taewook studied the tactical displays. "The humans are adapting faster than the Keth can respond. Look at this pattern. They are using the destroyed ships as shields. For the next wave, they are turning their own casualties into tactical advantages." The humans had discovered something that the peaceful galactic species had forgotten. War was not just about technology or superior firepower. It was about will, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. And slowly, impossibly, the humans were having an effect. The Keth ship that had conquered dozens of worlds was being damaged by primitive aircraft and improvised weapons. The species that had never been defeated was struggling against opponents who refused to surrender. The Council observers watched in stunned silence as the humans proved that sometimes fury and determination could overcome technological superiority. 48 hours into the battle, the impossible became reality. The Keth ship, battered by relentless human attacks, began to withdraw from Earth orbit. The Council crew stared at their displays in shock, unable to process what they were seeing. "They are retreating," Dr. Hana whispered. "The Keth are actually retreating." The human response was immediate and terrifying. Instead of celebrating their victory, they launched everything they had left. Every remaining nuclear weapon, every modified aircraft, Every improvised missile streaked toward the retreating Keth vessel. The humans were not content to survive, they wanted to destroy their attackers. Completely, Commander Taewok watched the tactical displays with growing horror. They are not stopping. The Keth are leaving, but the humans are still attacking. They want to kill them all. The humans had learned something during the battle. They had discovered that the Keth shields were vulnerable to coordinated attacks. They had figured out that multiple, simultaneous impacts could overload the defensive systems. Their primitive computers had calculated the exact timing needed. The final human assault was devastating. Coordinated nuclear detonations overwhelmed the Keth shields, just as modified aircraft carrying experimental weapons struck the ship hull. The massive vessel, pride of the Keth fleet, began to break apart. "Get us out of here," Captain Ji-woo ordered. Now their ship jumped to hyperspace just as the Keth vessel exploded. The shockwave would have destroyed them if they had remained even seconds longer. Behind them, Earth glowed with the fires of war, but it was still inhabited by humans. Living, angry, victorious humans. The council crew sat in stunned silence as they traveled back to the nearest council base. They had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. A primitive species had not only resisted Keth conquest, but had actually defeated them. "We need to report this immediately," Captain Ji-woo said, but her voice was shaking. "The council needs to know what humans are capable of." Diarhana was reviewing the battle recordings. "It was not just their tactics," she said quietly, "it was their mindset. They did not fight like a civilized species, they fought like predators, defending their territory." The more they analyzed the battle, the more disturbing it became. The humans had adapted to Keth technology within hours. They had modified their primitive weapons to exploit weaknesses in advanced systems. They had coordinated global military operations with stunning efficiency, and they had done it all while under constant bombardment. "They are not just brave," Lieutenant Sung-ho observed. "They are terrifyingly creative." They turned passenger aircraft into weapons. They used their entire civilian infrastructure as a military asset. They weaponized everything: their communications, their transportation, even their entertainment systems. Commander Taewok was studying the final battle recordings. "Look at this," he said, highlighting a series of human communications. After the Keth began retreating, their leaders were already planning follow-up attacks. They were discussing how to track down other Keth ships, how to find their homeworlds, how to take the war to the enemy. The implications were staggering. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had enjoyed it. They had discovered they were good at war, and they wanted more. Diarhana was monitoring human communications in the aftermath of the battle. "Listen to their news broadcasts," she said. "They are not mourning their dead, they are celebrating their victory. They are proud of what they accomplished." The human casualties had been enormous. Entire cities had been vaporized. Millions of people had died in the orbital bombardment. But the surviving humans were not broken. They were energized. They had proven they could fight and win against superior technology. "We need to warn the council," Dr. Hana said. "If humans ever develop faster than light travel, if they ever leave their solar system." She did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone on the ship understood. The humans were dangerous, more dangerous than any species the galaxy had encountered. They did not just fight to survive, they fought to win completely and utterly. Lieutenant Sung-ho was analyzing human post-battle communications. "They are already planning for the next war," he reported. "They are building new weapons, developing new tactics, preparing for future conflicts. They think this was just the beginning." The humans had learned that the galaxy was not empty. They had discovered that there were other species out there, some of them hostile, and they were preparing to meet them on their own terms. Captain Ji-woo looked at the battle damage reports. "The humans destroyed a Keth destroyer with primitive technology," she said. "What will happen when they develop advanced weapons? What will they do when they have ships that can travel between stars?" The answer was obvious. The humans would do what they had always done. They would fight, they would conquer, they would expand, and they would enjoy every moment of it. The Council Peaceful Galaxy was about to meet its first true warrior species. The Council emergency session was called within hours of the observation team report. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the great chamber, their faces reflecting a mixture of disbelief and growing fear. The news was spreading. Despite attempts to keep it secret, Ambassador Hyung-min stood before the assembled delegates, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was reporting. The Keth destroyer-class vessel has been confirmed destroyed, he announced. The human species successfully defended their planet using primitive technology and unconventional tactics. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions, demanded proof, and argued among themselves. The idea that a pre-FTL civilization could defeat the Keth was absurd. It challenged everything they understood about galactic warfare. High Counselor Unesio, a veteran diplomat from the Centauri Federation, called for order. If this report is accurate, she said, we are facing an unprecedented situation. The Keth have never been defeated by a primitive species. Dr. Hannah activated the holographic display showing recordings from the battle. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as primitive human aircraft swarmed the Keth vessel like angry insects. They saw nuclear weapons jury rigged for space combat, civilian aircraft converted into suicide weapons, and coordination between human forces that defied everything they knew about pre-FTL civilizations. They are not like us, Dr. Hannah explained. Every species in the Council developed civilization through cooperation, diplomacy, and gradual technological advancement. Humans developed through constant warfare. They have been fighting each other for millennia. They are naturally adapted for combat. The implications were staggering. If humans could defeat the Keth with primitive technology, what could they do with advanced weapons? What would happen when they inevitably developed faster than light? Travel Council military advisor Dong Hyan, a grizzled veteran from the Vegan Defense Corps, stood to address the assembly. We need to understand what we are dealing with, he said grimly. The humans did not just defend themselves, they enjoyed it. Our analysis of their communications shows they were excited by the challenge. They found warfare stimulating. The chamber fell silent. Most council species had evolved beyond the need for warfare. They settled disputes through negotiation, mediation, and compromise. The idea of a species that actually enjoyed conflict was alien and terrifying. What do you recommend, High Counselor? Unesio Esqueda. In response sent chills through the assembly. Immediate intervention. We need to establish contact with the humans before they develop FTL technology. We need to guide them toward peaceful development, or he paused, considering his words carefully, or we need to contain them. The debate that followed was intense. Some delegates argued for immediate contact, hoping to influence human development toward peaceful cooperation. Others suggested a protective quarantine around Earth's solar system, preventing humans from ever reaching the stars. But Ambassador Kyungmin had spent months observing human behavior. He understood something that the other delegates did not. You are not thinking like humans, he said quietly. If we try to contain them, they will see it as a challenge. If we try to guide them, they will resent our interference. Either approach could trigger exactly what we are trying to prevent. Then what do you suggest, High Counselor Unesio? Asked. We prepare, Kyungmin replied. We study them, we learn from them, and we prepare for the day when they join us among the stars, because they will join us. Whether we want them to or not, the vote was close. But the Council ultimately decided on a policy of observation and preparation. Secret monitoring stations would be established around Earth. Human development would be carefully tracked, and Council military forces would be quietly reinforced. But even as they made these plans, everyone in the chamber knew the truth. The age of peaceful galactic civilization was ending. The humans were coming, and nothing would ever be the same. Dr. Hannah presented additional analysis. The humans are not just warriors. She said they are adaptable, they learn quickly, they solve problems creatively, they could become valuable allies or our worst enemy's lieutenant. Sung Ho had been monitoring human communications since the battle. Their post-war development is accelerating. He reported they are reverse engineering Keth technology, sharing knowledge globally and advancing faster than our computer models predicted. The Council faced an impossible choice: contact the humans and risk triggering their aggressive instincts, or wait and hope they developed peaceful intentions. Neither option offered certainty. High Counselor Unesio made the final decision. We will monitor and prepare, she announced, but we will not interfere. The humans have proven they can defend themselves. Let us hope they choose to use their abilities wisely. The session ended in somber silence. Representatives returned to their homeworlds, carrying news that would change everything. The peaceful galaxy they had known for millennia was about to become a much more dangerous place. The humans had shown that primitive species could defeat advanced civilizations through determination and creativity. Now the question was what they would do with that knowledge. 2 years after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The news of humanity's victory over the Keth had spread despite the Council's attempts at secrecy. Some species were fascinated by the warrior humans, others were terrified, and a few were beginning to prepare for war. Ambassador Kyung-min stood in the observation deck of the new monitoring station, watching Earth through advanced sensors. The planet had changed dramatically since the Keth attack. The humans had unified under a single government, pooled their resources, and were advancing technologically at an unprecedented rate. "They're learning from the Keth ship debris," Dr. Hana reported. "Our sensors show they're reverse engineering the technology. They've already achieved fusion power, advanced computing, and improved spacecraft design." The human response to victory had been predictable in retrospect. Instead of celebrating and returning to their peaceful development, they'd prepared for the next war. Every nation had contributed to a massive military buildup. Human factories were producing weapons around the clock. Their space program had expanded exponentially. "They're not just preparing to defend themselves," Commander Tae-wook observed. "They're preparing to attack. Look at these ship designs. They're not exploration vessels, they're warships." The humans had made it clear that they considered the galaxy a dangerous place. They'd been attacked once, and they were determined to be ready for the next threat. Their military planners were already discussing the possibility of preemptive strikes against potential enemies. Captain Ji-woo studied the latest intelligence reports. "They're close to achieving FTL travel," she said. "Our estimates suggest they'll have working hyperspace drives within 5 years. Maybe less." The implications were staggering. Within a decade, human warships would be capable of reaching any point in the galaxy. A species that had defeated the Keth with primitive technology would soon have access to the same advanced systems that the Council had developed over millennia. "They're not going to be content with their solar system," Dr. Hana added. "Their communications show they're already planning colonial expeditions. They want to expand, to claim territory, to establish a human empire." The Council's response had been to reinforce their military forces, but privately, many questioned whether it would be enough. The humans had proven they could improvise, adapt, and overcome technological disadvantages through sheer determination and creativity. "They're changing us," Ambassador Kyung-min said quietly. "The mere knowledge that humans exist is forcing other species to militarize. The Altarians are building new warships. The Centauri Federation is developing new weapons. The peaceful galaxy we've maintained for thousands of years is becoming an armed camp." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The humans hadn't even left their solar system yet, but their impact was already being felt across the galaxy. The Council's member species were remembering how to fight, rediscovering military technologies they'd abandoned centuries ago. "What happens when they arrive?" Dr. Hana asked. "When human ships appear in our space? We'll find out," Kyung-min replied. "But I suspect the galaxy is about to become a very different place." As if summoned by his words, the monitoring stations, alarms began to sound. Lieutenant Seung-ho rushed to his console, his face pale. "Contact," he reported. "We're detecting a new energy signature from Earth. It's an FTL drive test." The crew gathered around the displays, watching as a small human spacecraft winked out of existence, traveled several light years and seconds, then reappeared near Earth's moon. The test was brief but successful. The humans had achieved faster-than-light travel 3 years ahead of schedule. "Send an immediate message to the Council," Captain Ji-woo ordered. "Tell them the humans are coming." Across the galaxy, in the sleeping chambers of 1,000 worlds, members of advanced civilizations began to wake with a start. Many would never sleep peacefully again. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The observers had witnessed humanity's first war, and now they understood the terrible truth: it wouldn't be their last.